to a brand new edition of T and Friends Watch a Scary Movie. I, of course, am T, and we're talking what else but scary movies. I appreciate you tuning in on another brand new episode here every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube page that you can find right here, as this page will let you know when I'm uploading new videos. Again, we upload them to the YouTube page every Wednesday, and sometimes we might have some other videos to show y'all too, toy unboxings, food making and eating and challenges and stuff like that as well. But the only way you're going to know when they're going up is if you're subscribed. And then, of course, every Wednesday night, right after our new episodes, we do a movie watch party. Usually has something to do with the episode. We're watching a movie that's involved with maybe what I've reviewed or something with news or something like that. Now, sometimes we vote, like last week, for example, we watched The Edge to go along with part one of the interview I did. And other times we have a little bit more fun with the movies we watch as well, too. So remember, you got to subscribe to our Facebook page, which you can find right here. And this page will let you know when we are doing our watch parties. Again, we do them every Wednesday after new episodes. And then traditionally we do our TV watch parties every Saturday night. So we go back, watch some old school horror TV shows. We got commercials and music videos to go along with that. This month, of the month of March, we've been doing them on Thursdays just because Saturdays don't really work well for me this month. But we'll probably get back to that next month and following up on that. Anyway, tonight is part 2 of my interview with the writer and director of the recent great horror film, Hunter x Hunter, director and writer Shawn Linden. Last week I showed part 1 of the interview. We got to ask a lot about the movie and about his filmmaking style, and tonight we are starting off right away with some spoilers. So if you have not seen Hunter x Hunter yet, you are going to want to turn this off right now, or you're going to want to skip forward, and I will let you know specifically here, right there, where you're going to want to skip forward to avoid the spoilers. We're going to talk about that ending. We're going to talk about a lot of other fun things, and you're going to get your inside scoop on the sequel to Hunter x Hunter. Yes, got a scoop from Shawn himself. We're going to talk a little bit about the sequel. So, this is it, part 2 of my interview with director and writer Shawn Linden. Enjoy.
And with that, you had some fantastic performances in it. I mentioned it, but I do want to talk a little bit about Camille Sullivan's performance real quick here, to where she ends up being the guiding light's not really the right word, but she's the captain of this ship as we slowly progress through this story. And to get into kind of spoiler territory, which if any those of y'all who are watching, you're gonna want to skip ahead just a little bit for some of the beats that might come up here. But after the absolutely insane ending goes down, I focused in on her walking out of the shed back towards the front of the house, surrounded by authorities, and after that, after she's done, with Nick Stahl, basically, there's still she's stumbling, she's just she's out of it. There's not a weakness, there is an emptiness there, and I don't know why I fixated so much on that in the best of ways. Talk
That's
to me.
Camille.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
That's Camille. She was a powerhouse, and we were lucky enough to shoot most of it chronologically, so she had always had the anchor of, because she goes through a lot of emotions and has to, pull herself up by her own bootstraps to face a lot of different occasions, and by the end, she gets broken, I guess, for her, to give a little bit of spoilers, but she was always gearing up for the final climax, when she knows that all of that work that she had done for the entire movie burns itself out and leaves that absence that hopefully leaves that absence that you were talking about. When she walks out of that shed, she has nothing left. There's no more Anne inside of her. It's just kind of an empty shell that revenge has consumed, and then there's really nothing else. It's a pretty nihilistic ending to a movie, with not a huge lesson at the end that can clearly be discerned. But yeah, by the end, her soul's been broken. So that's the end.
Which let's talk about that really quickly as well too. Specifically the ending here. There's no secret. I love horror movies. I love movies in general, but horror obviously sticks with me. And like you said, like I would absolutely agree that your film is like it goes more like of a thriller or suspense or a very big drama with like horrific elements in there. And none of that changes the fact that I don't think I've been more shocked by an ending and we've had some really like, and again, your film is really good. We've had a lot of other really good films in the last like decade or two that didn't have endings like that, and I don't just mean for shock value to where it felt justified. And I don't, not even from the revenge point of view or anything like that, but it just felt that all this emotion and everything that Anne is just holding in is just building up. And it was such just like, it was almost like earlier in the film when she screams at the wolf to scare it away from her and Renee. It's almost like that, to where that ending is just like a scream basically. And I'm so curious if, while writing it, you know, revisions and all that there, if you ever thought that that would just catch people the way it did, because that's one of the biggest things that I see across social media and just reviews and everything, is just that ending. Like, where did that come from, and did it change, and did you think that it would have this much of an effect on people, honestly?
I was hoping so. The whole idea behind it, like another experimental part of the story, is its structure, and that it's kind of structured like walking into the trap that populates the story. Is that the story kind of lulls you into this sense of general non-specific alarm that doesn't really come into fruition, or so it kind of lulls you into that sense before kind of snapping shut on you, and suddenly it's a whole different world. Like if you walk into one of those traps, it's you hit your emotional and physical senses just pivot on a dime, and you realize you're kind of you're suddenly in danger. So it was always meant to have that visceral effect by the end, but the at the heart of the story, it was ultimately just trying to think of what's the worst thing that could what could make, like, picturing a morally good woman or a person, and the worst thing that you could think that you could do to another human being, and try to see what's the process that turns somebody who's essentially good into performing an act like that. And even from an audience perspective, hopefully there's a cathartic element to the ending where you're like, kind of, that's why I was hoping to see it in in theaters with a genre audience, because I was wondering if people would be standing up and cheering this moment, like, yeah, good for you. And then the story kind of ends, and then the audience is left with like, what did I just cheer on, or what did I just, agree was the right decision, and what does that make me as a moral human being? And then, what is morality? And then, and you start wearing black shirts every day.
Yeah. And man, with this cast, and like, whether it's luck, whether it's talent, whether it's just having the right common sense or anything like that, there, like I said, you have a good cast together, and you said that everybody's just having such a great time on the set. How important really is it, not just that you have good actors who can do the material that you wrote, because you had the luxury here of not only directing your film but writing your film too, and a lot of people don't really get that, to where they're adapting somebody else's words, or you have to see your words being adapted and not matching up necessarily with the intent. With you writing this film, were you able to basically put the movie out the way that you wanted to do it?
With some notable exceptions, yes.
Okay.
Like, it was always, as a writer director, when I'm writing something that I'm going to direct, it's basically already directed by the time I write it in my head, because I don't really sign off on scenes that I write until I can see them in my head. Mm-hmm. And then the directing part of it is pretty much just executing that kind of clear vision, and that's what comes that's what writer directors benefit most from, is that they can be the best source of information, like the best resource material for the script. Like I had an answer if an actor had a question for me, I had an answer for everything, for doing it, and the things that weren't seen in the movie. They got to see, understand enough of the story to get them going. And even if that wasn't what winds up being on screen, it's a starting point that actors can use as discussion with me about psychology and what feels wrong, and then it's just the best idea comes through. And I think that's where that authenticity came through. But yeah, as a writer director, you have that kind of control. And as far as having a good time on set, like, we were mucking it. You can tell that we were far away from civilization. We were shooting far often with no running water or electricity, and raining all day, and humping lights and equipment up cliff sides, and it was generally an all-around difficult shoot. So to keep everything really, the crew had also had a big part in, and were able to feel proud of their work, and the collaborative nature that we had on set just means that everybody was doing what they can. They were tight days, but we were laughing the whole time. It was a grim ass movie, but off screen, the actors wouldn't go back to their trailers because they wanted to hang out and to talk about their characters, which we would do constantly, and just enjoy being out in the middle of nowhere, even if you are ankle deep in muck and getting deeper.
Was there anything from the experience, like from either shooting it or from the script, that didn't necessarily make it through that you really wanted? Because, as you said, I mean, you got to plan everything out in your head as you're writing. You're basically directing it in your head as well, and nothing's actually gonna go to get shot until you finalized it and signed off on it. Is there anything that you decided ultimately from the script that you can reveal that didn't make it into it? Or was there anything that you shot that you ultimately just said, this has to go because it just doesn't fit with, how things are going with the film now?
Yeah, that's just kind of how it works, I would imagine, with all movies. It has with all of mine, and of reacting to the moment, and having to think on it on the fly. And especially while editing, if something doesn't work with the flow of the movie, you have to be prepared as a filmmaker to let that stuff go for the sake of the greater good. But if you're doing it right, like, all I can see in the movie are mistakes. I can't see. I'm not getting any of the initial effects. Like, I used to, during the editing process, you'd watch the movie 3 times a day for 2 months. So I know it backwards and forwards and where every little cut came from. That's all I see are the things that I could have done better when we were shooting, and or things that I shouldn't have wasted resources on because some of it made it to the cutting floor and made our days more difficult. There's tons of that always go into it. Like, no movie's ever perfect in their filmmakers' eyes. I hope not.
They always want to improve, right?
That's it. They have to take it away from you. That's the story to Hunter x Hunter would have evolved, and if it hadn't have been made for another 2 years after this one, it probably would have evolved slightly to suit the times and my sensibilities.
Okay. All right. Well, we are done with the seriousness, and as we close this off, we have just I have 3 questions for you here. They're all going to kind of be in fun, honestly. So go with it wherever you feel. All right.
Sure.
First question's coming from one of our viewers here who asked, all right, so everything that happened in that movie, based on where the movie ends at, what happens to the wolf? And this was a serious question that came up there. I mean, we had all this carnage at this point. People's lives are like forever changed. What happens to the wolf?
Oh, it's one of the things that didn't make it into the script because we couldn't dealing with the wolf. It was a live wolf, so it was really hard to get to do what you wanted it to do.
Mm.
But the last shot in the script was, the wolf watching the smoke plumes in the distance as it just walks off. Is again, it was just a wolf. A wolf is just a wolf. It didn't get its comeuppance because it doesn't deserve any comeuppance, and you know there's no reason. It was doing what it does, and it will continue to do so. It was the only real survivor out of the movie.
And that's a real answer because you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not a revenge tale for the wolf or anything like that. So
No.
we're not gonna get like Anne versus like the wolf pack or anything like
Yeah.
that. So.
No. Revenge is a human emotion. Hunger is an everything need.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So next one then. We've played this with a few of our other guests we've had here on the show. I'm going to give you a couple of movies, and whether you've seen them or not, because there might be some you haven't seen there, all you got to do is tell me your preference between the two. And they're all themed basically to be backwoods horror films. So if you've seen them, great. Pick whichever one's better. And if you haven't, I guess go off the title, the trailer, anything that you know about it, all right? We only got
Sure.
4 of them here. Gonna try to keep it simple, all right?
Give them to me.
All right, first one. Cabin in the Woods or the original Blair Witch Project?
Oh, that's a good one. That'll be the toughest one that you ask, I
It
bet.
will be.
It'd probably be a close. I think Blair Witch, just because of the effect.
Okay.
I loved Cabin in the Woods, but it didn't really scare me at all.
That's a fair point. Did you like when Blair Witch came out originally and everything like that? Were you one of the many who got a chance to actually see it in theaters or get caught up in the craze and everything like that too?
Yeah, I saw it in the theaters. It was after there was an initial craze where it was going around that this is a real found footage doc. I saw it after that, or was really going into it knowing that it was a work of fiction. But
Okay.
it's another movie that kind of it's creepy until the last couple of minutes where it goes off a cliff, and that's the real moment that everybody remembers. So,
Yep. Agreed. Okay.
that's how Hunter x Hunter winds up. Hopefully.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, from everything that's out on there, it definitely seems like that's the case. So, all right, number 2, Evil Dead or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay.
Although again, that was tougher than I would have. They're tougher than I thought.
You got to think about it because then it's like, well, do I consider the sequels? And the sequels are probably where like it changes the tune for sure. So
yeah, the
All
first Evil Dead, in the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I would say Texas.
Okay, I'm with it then. All right, number 3, Friday the 13th or Deliverance?
Deliverance, 100%.
Okay. All right, we got some good ones then. All right. And our last one, Wrong Turn or Cabin Fever?
Which the original of both?
That's so have you seen both the original and the remake of Wrong Turn at this point?
I have.
Oh, you know what? Then I'm curious. Then, like, if you had your choice between, let's take Cabin Fever out for a second, because the same episode where I talked about Hunter x Hunter, I did review the new Wrong Turn as well too, and as you know, because you've seen them, very different films, very different films, by the same screenwriter, by the way, too, who did that. Preference between the original or the remake?
Oh yeah, he was actively trying to make a movie or something that was different from the first, for sure.
Yeah,
I think I like the original one the best. I think the remake had a couple of bridges too far for me.
Okay, and that's fair. I mean, that was a classic. That is one at that time to where that still gives me some chills thinking about the original one now too. So
yeah, it was good.
All right, so our last question here. And we've gotten fun answers about this, okay? So think about it, think what you got here. If, and obviously we've seen the movie, we know how it ends here. But if studio came back to you right now and said, hey, we want you to make a sequel to Hunter x Hunter, and you have to make a sequel. Now, whether you've actually considered, and seeing the film, I have to imagine probably hasn't, but if somewhere in the deep, darkest recesses you have ever considered a sequel to Hunter x Hunter, give us the sequel idea. And here's the thing. Here's the only rules for it. It can either be an actual real idea that maybe you've considered and then said, obviously this isn't ever going to happen, or you can just make something up. We're not going to know either way because you can't confirm which one it is. But tell us, and it can be outlandish, by the way, too. Whatever it is fine. Tell us what the sequel to Hunter x Hunter would be.
Well, I specifically made it sequel proof. It's by the end, a lot of people have questions on what Anne's fate is after the movie. So if I had to pick something, it would be pretty much a 20-minute sequel where she's declared insane and shipped off to a hospital, and then maybe it becomes like a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest style deal where she's being mistreated in a hospital for the mentally incapacitated, and then is rescued by the wolf. And she realizes she was wrong about him the whole time.
And now they live a life of peaceful existence out in the woods.
Yeah, they went back to the woods. Same cabin.
Oh, man. Okay. I like the idea, and I apologize in advance if the studios by chance catch this and they're like, well, we heard you have a great idea for a sequel. It's time for Hunter x Hunter 2. So I apologize if they come back and they got to use this idea, which may or may not be a real idea there.
Right.
Shawn, I appreciate you joining us so much. Folks, the film Hunter x Hunter is out right now. It's available for purchase and for rent on most streaming platforms, Prime Video, Vudu. You can get it pretty much in most places out there. Shawn, any last words you have for us here?
The movie will be out on Hulu on March 19th on my birthday.
That's big. That's actually extremely big. Happy early birthday, first of all. And folks, that's a pretty big drop of knowledge right there, because again, if 2020 has shown us something, streaming services is something you got to have. With that being said, though, buy this movie before it gets to Hulu, though, too, because it's worth the money.
Ignore what I just said there. It's never coming out. You should buy it on VOD. And
there's no release on any kind of streaming platform. You have to purchase. You have to rent, folks. Let's get it going. All right.
That's it.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Shawn.
Thanks a lot, Darren. It's good to talk to you.
All right, folks, and that's going to do it for another brand new edition of Tea and Friends Watch a Scary Movie. Thanks again to director Shawn Linden for allowing us to spend some time with him here and discuss his great movie. Remember, Hunter x Hunter comes to Hulu on March 19th. Yes, March 19th. You can catch this on Hulu. And if you want to see my interview with David Steinman, the writer and director of Santa Slay, you'll find that right here. If you want to find part 1 of my interview with Shawn Linden, you can find that right here. And if you want to get subscribed to the YouTube page, go ahead and click that right there. Thank you guys very much for joining us on another new episode. I'm T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.